In class, the teacher instructed the students to incorporate the word fascinate into a sentence. Molly eagerly raised her hand and shared, "My family visited my granddad's farm, and we all saw his pet sheep. It was fascinating." The teacher acknowledged the effort, but clarified that she wanted them to use the word fascinate, not fascinating. Undeterred, Sally raised her hand and shared, "My family went to see Rock City, and I was fascinated." The teacher appreciated Sally's response, but reminded her that she specifically wanted them to use the word fascinate. Little Johnny, known for his mischievous nature, raised his hand. Despite the teacher's hesitation, she decided to give him a chance, confident that he couldn't manipulate the word fascinate too much. So, she called on Johnny, who cheekily responded, "My Aunt Carolyn has a sweater with 10 buttons, but her chest is so ample she can only fasten." Dave walks into a bar and notices his friend Jeff looking downcast near the counter. Curious, Dave approaches Jeff and inquires about what's bothering him. Jeff looks up and shares, "Remember that incredibly attractive woman at our workplace? The one I finally mustered the courage to ask out? The one who always made me so nervous that I'd end up embarrassingly aroused every time I saw her?" Dave grins and affirms, "Yes." Straightening up, Jeff reveals, "Well, I finally gathered enough courage to ask her on a date. And she said yes." Dave expresses excitement, exclaiming, "That's fantastic. When are you guys planning to go out?" Jeff explains, "Actually, I was supposed to meet her tonight, but I was really worried that I might get visibly aroused again. So I came up with a plan. I used some strong duct tape to attach my private part to my leg. That way, even if I did get aroused, it wouldn't be noticeable." Dave remarks, "That sounds like a practical solution." Jeff continues with a sigh. "So, I arrived at her house and rang the doorbell. She came to the door wearing the tiniest skirt I've ever seen." Intrigued, Dave asks, "And then what happened?" Jeff sinks back into his gloomy posture near the bar and somberly says, "I kicked her in the face." A large number of viewers watch my videos without a subscription. Therefore, subscribe to my channel so as not to miss new videos with funny jokes. A group of intoxicated, wealthy, blonde sorority girls, all left-handed, decide to engage in a risky game of Russian roulette. They each contribute $50,000 under the agreement that anyone who backs out loses their bet, and the last remaining participant claims the entire pot. Kirsten takes the first turn, placing the gun to her head and pulling the trigger. Blam! She falls lifeless. Maddie follows, expressing hope for better luck than Kirsten. Blam! She also falls dead. Vicky then takes her turn, saying, "Third time's a charm, right?" And blam! She drops dead. Now, it's Danielle's turn. She picks up the gun, looks at it, and asks Brooke, "Hey, isn't this game usually played with a..." A woman goes on a business trip to a foreign country, leaving her husband in charge of their house and kids. After a few days, she decides to call him to check on how everything is going. The husband shares that things are going pretty well. The kids have adjusted to her absence, and his boss even granted him an additional week off until her return. Then he casually mentions, "Oh, and I forgot to mention, our cat died. A car hit her." Shocked, the wife exclaims, "Are you serious? Couldn't you have delivered that news a bit more gently?" The man asks for clarification, and she suggests that he could have eased her into the truth. She proposes a scenario where he could have gradually built up the story, saying the cat was trapped on the roof one day, then the firefighters were coming to rescue her the next, followed by news of a broken leg, and finally, on Friday, revealing that she passed away peacefully in her sleep. "Don't just say out of nowhere, 'The cat's dead,'" she adds. Feeling guilty, the man apologizes and the wife hangs up. A couple of days later, she calls back to apologize for getting angry, explaining that the business meetings have been stressful. She inquires about how things are at home, and the man reassures her that everything is fine. He shares some positive news about their children, mentioning that Johnny received a certificate for swimming a long distance and Molly expressed a desire for a horse for Christmas. Just as the conversation seems to be ending on a good note, he adds, "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you your mom is trapped on the roof." A traditional cowboy straight from the dusty trails strolls into a lively saloon, surprisingly clad in nothing but his trusty cowboy boots. Bewildered saloon-goers try to make sense of the situation, and one finally musters the courage to ask Slim, "Where in the world did you leave your clothes?" Slim, taking a deep breath, begins his tale. According to Slim, he was at the barn tending to the horses when out of nowhere an absolutely stunning blonde lady arrives in a wagon. With glistening eyes, she tells Slim that she has a surprise for him in the barn and invites him to come along. Curiosity piqued, Slim decides to follow her lead. In the barn, she turns to Slim with a cheeky grin and instructs him to strip down, shedding all his clothes. Feeling adventurous, Slim complies, and here's the twist. As Slim recounts, she begins to remove her own garments, revealing a figure that could make any cowboy's heart race. She then asks Slim if he appreciates the view, and without hesitation he responds, "Indeed, ma'am, it's a sight to behold." Cheekily smiling, Slim concludes the story, mentioning that she cozied up on a blanket, winked, and said, "All right, cowboy, it's your turn to have some fun now." Naturally, Slim pulled on his boots, and that's how he found himself in the saloon. A guy decides to buy his new girlfriend a pair of gloves for Christmas, considering they've only been dating for 3 weeks, making it an ideal gift, romantic yet not too personal. To make the purchase, he enlists the help of the girlfriend's younger sister to point out a pair she'd like. They visit the mall, where the sister chooses a pair of white gloves and the guy buys them. The sister, however, also picks up a pair of panties for herself and purchases them. During the wrapping process, the clerk inadvertently switches the parcels without anyone noticing. Consequently, the sister receives the gloves, and the guy unknowingly takes home a gift box containing the panties. Without checking the contents, the guy rushes the gift to his sweetheart, but not before drafting a loving and helpful note to accompany it. The note expresses the following sentiments. "To my dearest, I chose these gloves because I noticed you are not in the habit of wearing any when we go out in the evening. If it had not been for your sister, I would have chosen the long ones with the buttons, but she wears the short ones that are easier to remove. These are a delicate shade, but the lady I bought them from showed me a pair she'd been wearing for the last 3 weeks, and they were hardly soiled. I had her try yours on for me, and she looked really smart. I wish I was there to put them on for you the first time. There's no doubt other hands will come in contact with them before I have a chance to see you again. When you take them off, remember to blow in them before putting them away, as they will naturally be a little damp from wearing. Just think how many times I will kiss them during the coming year. I hope you will wear them for the upcoming Christmas."